Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and I'm here to talk about the movie American Trial, the Eric Garner story. And I have Roy Messenger as well as Mrs. Garner on the phone here to talk about the movie. Roy, I wanted to start with you. Well, firstly, I'll start with where we both started when we first got on the phone. You asked me how I was doing, and I couldn't really give you a good answer. And then I asked you how you were doing. You couldn't give me a good answer. And then Mrs. Gardner came on, and I asked her how she was doing. And everybody is kind of struggling for words. So can we start with Roy? How are you doing?
Yeah, you asked me before, and I said that when we start recording, I'll try to come up with a more eloquent answer, because all I could do is muster some sigh. I think that's what it was. Yeah, I mean, it's we're experiencing something that we've all experienced before, right? It's not the first time that something like this happens, and people also talk about it like it's. Somehow these protests are unprecedented, or somehow the magnitude of them are, but it's they're how we react, and how we ought to react when something like this happens. And it's not the first time that it's happened, and so these are not the first protests that we see. Maybe we haven't seen protests of these magnitude for a while. Maybe the last time we saw them in New York was definitely when Eric was killed, and around that same summer with the protests in Ferguson. So it's true that it's been a while, but yeah, it's all very reminiscent. It's all something that it's far too familiar.
Wow. Mrs. Gardner, can you respond to that as well? Because you gave a little texture as to how you're trying to, I guess, get through this period.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's I can't even say waking up every day because I'm not sleeping. I haven't slept in the last couple of days. I have no appetite. It's like I'm going through what I went through 6 years ago all over again, and he wasn't even my husband, but I'm not even going to say similarities. I'm going to say the incident in itself just making me sick to my stomach. It's just ridiculous. They need to hold these cops accountable, and it's not fair to our people. It's not fair to everyone and anyone, not just black people, just people in general. People don't want to wake up in the morning and hear this on the news.
Yeah.
It's just so much going on, and this is just adding to the grief. We're already dealing with staying in the house for the coronavirus, and then now this, and I'm still dealing with 6 years ago. I still haven't completely healed, and it's like they just poured salt on the wound and opened it right back up again.
When you talk about not completely healing, looking at this movie, it really appeared where Roy, I'm really interested that you showed that part of after you, Ms. Gardner, testified, you really broke down there. And so when you talk about not completely healing, talk about going through the process of being in this film and the impact that really had on you.
To me, it wasn't a movie. It was like I was going through it.
Wow.
In my life. Like, it wasn't a movie for me. It was my life. It was raw emotions. I really, even though I knew the questions and I knew what was going to be asked, and, my reaction to it was really genuine. I felt anger. I felt like I was really on trial, like I was really on the witness stand speaking on my husband's behalf. And hearing them talk and say the things that they were saying, I got angry to the point where I really wanted to jump over the thing and punch the lady in her face, knowing that it was fake. But to me, it was real.
It really came across that way, Roy. Let's roll back a bit for a minute. What made you want to do this project? Because this does seem like, I mean, it hurt me to watch it, and now just to listen to Mrs. Garner talk about her emotions going through it. What made you want to do this project?
Well, so maybe just before we get into that, so that the audience, in case somebody hasn't watched the movie yet, know what it's about. So basically, the film is an unscripted courtroom drama that shows the trial that would have happened if the authorities decided to prosecute Daniel Pantaleo, the man who killed Eric Garner. And the reason it's unscripted is because everyone there is real. It's real attorneys, the real witnesses who would have testified had the case been tried, including Esaw, who was gracious to agree to participate and come on this journey with me. And so to answer your question, the reason why I decided to do this is because I was living in Harlem at the time when Eric Garner was killed, and when the decision not to indict the police officers who were involved in the incident came through. And it was very similar to what's going on now. It was hard to get away from it. It was everywhere. And it was hard to get anything done. It was hard to think of anything else. It's what people were talking about in the elevator. It's what people were talking about when I was out on the street walking my dog. It's what people were talking about when I was in the grocery store. And so it just occurred to me that everybody knows that there should have been a trial. It's mind-boggling that there wasn't one. It's mind-boggling that the authorities decided that that this was not enough, that there wasn't enough evidence to even justify going over it.
Wow.
In a court of law, right? That's what the decision means when you decide not to indict someone. It means that, okay, somebody died, but we don't think that there's enough evidence to suggest that there was anything wrong, right? That's what that decision meant. And so it occurred to me that if everyone seems to think so, that they seems to think that there should have been a trial, that it might be interesting to see what that trial would have looked like if things were different. And so I realized that I was living in New York, that everybody who would have testified was probably within 15, 20 miles radius of me, and that it probably wouldn't be all that difficult to find them, and that they probably, most of them, would be interested in doing it, and in shedding light on something that you need to shed some light on. And so at the time I was still in film school. But I graduated in May 2015, and a couple of months later it was the first year anniversary of Eric's death. And I went to a rally in Brooklyn, and I met Esaw, and I pitched her the idea, and she was interested, and we talked on the phone, and we met a couple of times, and then she said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Wow. So Esaw, I mean, when he says he met you and you were interested, again, looking at the raw emotions, just some of the video here where they're testifying and they're showing your face, it does look like you're going through this for the first time. I'm still scratching my head saying, why would you put yourself through that?
I did it, one, because my kids said, "Ma, do it. It's a good idea. It might help with your healing, and, bottom line, you might make some money."
Okay.
And another thing, Roey, his approach was so sincere, and I kind of wanted to do it to help him, being a first-time film director, just coming out of school. I said, why not help him, make his way in the world, and also help myself, And, we became friends, and now we're family. And, he comes around all family functions and everything. But his sincerity and his empathy and the support that I got from him from that day that I met him up until this day now, he always calls to check on me. I always call and tell him when something's going on. He listens. We talk, and we become friends. And I really wanted to help him help myself at the same time and bring this to light. I thought it was a absolutely amazing idea. I know that it wasn't really done before, and all the stuff that they do about police brutality and the victims and everything, it's usually a movie or a documentary, and this was different, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Wow. Just hearing you talk about him brought, you can't see me, but it just brought such a smile to my face of just the thought that you're going through something yourself to say, but I also want to help this guy. His sincerity, the way in which he brought it to me. I mean, that's just such a beautiful part of the story. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that. I have to turn to you, Roy, and say, what do you think when you hear that?
Esaw's always got my back, man. Like there was a screen. During the world premiere, for example, at the New York Film Festival, there was a moment where they started asking some questions that I was trying to be polite, but like I couldn't answer because they were asking questions that were not. The DA might be able to answer, or the Department of Justice might be able to answer. And I was like, listen, I just made a movie. I don't know the answer to those questions. And then Esaw kind of like got up and like called him out and said, like, leave him alone. What do you want from him? And so it's,
yeah, I was like, you asking him questions that he doesn't have the answer to. It's a movie, like, it's not real. So, all these questions that you're asking, you're bombarding him. And he's trying to be polite and, didn't know how to answer them. And I just had to step in and take over and kind of shut him down, Brooklyn style. And
Brooklyn style.
Leave him alone.
So Esaw, because Erica was such an outspoken advocate as well, what do you think she would think about this project as it's come to fruition, and also what's going on today?
Well, at first, she was like, Ma, don't sign that contract. You're not going to make any money. And I said, Erica, it's not about the money for me. It's about getting the story out. And, Erica was a hard nut to crack. So I had to kind of pitch Rowie to her. Like, I had to make her believe in him the way I believed in him in order to get her on board. Because at first she was like, no, you're not going to make any money. Don't sign that contract. I'm not doing it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but Erica, you really, but after she got to know him, and because, I think the first time he called, I think she kind of roughly like cursed him out, but without cursing.
Wow.
And he called me and he's like, oh my God, Erica, and I said, I'll talk to her. Don't worry. I'll calm her down or whatever. And how she would feel with this, I think she's smiling down, and I think she's patting me on my back and saying, you go, Mom, you go. She would be happy and for the movie part, but she would be livid about this George Floyd thing going on. She would be front and center right now at every rally, at every march, trying to fly around the country. Ma, watch the kids because I'm going here. Ma, watch the kids because I'm going to do this. And I wouldn't even be able to stop. COVID-19 would not be able to stop her from doing what she wanted to do.
Wow. So Roy, Esaw just talked about one of the challenges was just getting some of the family members on board. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges of putting this project together. I'm no longer going to call it a movie, because once Esaw said it wasn't a movie to her, I'm not ever going to call it a movie again. I'm going to just say project. What were some of the challenges putting this project together?
First of all, there were a lot of challenges. A lot of challenges. The first one is, just the fact that I'm a first-time filmmaker, and making movies costs money and it's hard to find. So not only am I a first-time filmmaker, but I'm coming up to people with this very, very strange idea about a movie that doesn't have a script, that's fictional, but isn't fictional, and it has real people, but it's, yeah. So I think that was the first challenge. Honestly, I don't have any proof or anything like that, but Esaw can tell you a little bit more about how the DOJ pressured them to back out and not participate in the project. And I can't help but feel that during the several years that it took to make the project, there were a lot of bumps in the road, and I can't say for sure that there wasn't anything deliberate done by anybody.
Wow. So Esaw, can you speak to that about the DOJ?
Yeah, they basically called us and threatened us not to go on with the movie, to wait until after the decision came out, and to wait for this and wait for that. And I told them, no, I'm not waiting for anything. Everybody else gets to do what they want to do and say what they want to say. And, nobody has anything to say. But as soon as I want to do something, everybody's against it, and I have to shut my project down. And I told them, no, do whatever you got to do. And I was willing to go to jail or whatever needed to be done to get this project done, because it wasn't fair. Everybody else got to do what they wanted to do, go on TV, protest, make up lies, say things that weren't true. And basically, I've been with Eric since he was 16 years old. There's nobody in this world, including his mom, that knew him better than I did. So for them to call me and tell me to shut my project down was unacceptable to me, and I was not going to do it. And I told Roe, you keep doing what you need to do, and I'll do whatever I have to do and use my connections or whatever, and they're not going to bother us. And they didn't. After that, they left us alone.
So Roy, what do you want the audience to take? I have a rapid fire question for Esaw after this, but three questions that I want to make sure I get in before we end this. But I want to ask you, what do you think? What do you want the audience to take away from this? And I was unable to be there when the audience did the voting. If you could share a little insight on what happened with the voting as well.
Sure. So I think the main thing about this movie is for people to really ask themselves, how is it possible that this trial never happened, right? In the end of the day, Pantaleo is just one officer. The movie isn't gonna, even the fact that the audience voted overwhelmingly that he's guilty, that doesn't mean that he's going to prison. And so it's not about Pantaleo and whether he's guilty or not guilty. It's about how is it possible that these things happen and continue to happen, and that there's no accountability on the other side. And I think that if the audience leaves the theater, or the virtual theater, whatever it is now and during COVID, watch the film and they're left with that question. I live in a country where human beings are killed by police regularly, overwhelmingly Black, and nothing happens. And this continues. How is that possible?
Wow.
That's